look out! Pop, pop, it's showtime! Showtime! Guess who's
Welcome back,
again?
everybody, to another episode of Pay It Forward. Today, we're going to be talking about writing a solid personal statement using 3 different views, all of which got accepted. This is the first part of the personal statement videos. My name is Samah Solomon, here with Dental Life. I'm a second-year dental student at ATSU ASDO in Arizona, and I run a channel called Dental Life on YouTube and Instagram. And I was the pre-dental chair for ASDA. So I was the former ATSU interview student ambassador. All right, so here today we have with us Fernanda from UCLA and Nadine from Western U.
Hello, my name is Fernanda. I'm from UCLA. I used to be the ASDA Ethics Chair. In the future, I will become the ASDA Preclinical Enrichment Chair. I'm also the director of the translator program of the clinic. And my major was applied biological sciences. As you can see in the slide, here are some of my activities that I did during my gap year.
Hi everyone, my name is Naveen Karyakos, and I am going to be an incoming D1 at Western University. I went to San Diego State for my undergrad and majored in biology and leadership development. During that time, I also was heavily involved in extracurriculars, specifically Flying Samaritans and the University of California, San Diego Pre-Dental Society. All of these gave me the experience that I needed to be able to not only learn if I would like dentistry, but to also get into school. And in my gap year, I did work in a dental clinic as well as in the biotech field.
So as I have here a disclaimer, so whatever information we provide is purely from our personal experience. So you should only use it as a guide, but not a guarantee to get you into dental school. So these are the resources that most of us used when we were narrowing down our selection of dental schools. So I talked about it in my previous video. It's going to be up here, the link to it. We have the IDEA official guide to dental schools, and this was very helpful in narrowing down which dental school I should apply to and which one was kind of like out of my league that I shouldn't apply to. And also here we have the ASDA's Getting into Dental School guide, and I talk about that in my previous video. So today we're gonna go over my application, specifically under the supporting information section. And under the supporting information section, the last video we went in depth for the evaluations, the experiences, the achievements, the licenses. And today we're gonna specifically focus on the personal statements. So when you write a personal statement, like I said in the last video, make it a strong personal statement. I also discussed in my previous video the CV and your resume and how important they are as a foundational overview of what you should talk about, but be selective and only pick a couple things from that. Here I have my old resume, which I drafted in 2010, I believe, and I ended up getting rid of that. And over the years, this was my last draft, and this was last revised, I believe, in mid 2019. So the entire thing has been years in process, and it has many offices that I worked for, many corporate and private offices, dental lab technician positions, and just a variety of other positions that I had. But the difference between a resume and a CV, a resume is basically just a one-pager about your work experience, and whereas the CV is more comprehensive about you as a person, as a whole. So the only difference is in my CV, I included the volunteering and the community service section, and I also use a portion of the CV to talk about my personal life, what I enjoy doing. Like, for example, I like to play soccer, I like to play chess. I included all that stuff in there. Your resume and your CV should always be updated on a monthly basis, definitely on a yearly basis, because you never know when you need one. So it's always good to have up-to-date draft. The previous video, I also talked about how these 2 documents are essential to send to your letter of recommendation writer and how they use that to draft the letter of recommendation for you. And I think it would be very helpful for you to draft a document such as this. So for your personal statement, you can only write up to 4,500 characters. And on the application portal, you're gonna have a text box where you copy and paste from a Word document your personal statement and then paste it in there. And whatever extra overflow of characters that is above 4,500, it will cut that off, even if it's the last period. And that's something, if I was an admin, if someone is missing a period at the very last like sentence that they have, then that will kind of like raise an eyebrow, because I'm like, you wrote the entire thing beautifully, and then at the end you had 4,501 character extra where they took out that period at the end. So it's always good to be under that 4,500 character count. So for the personal statement, responses you enter here will appear in your application exactly how you type it. So let's say, like some people would like to type the letters uppercase, lowercase, and alternate them. That's kind of annoying and it's very unprofessional. So if you're that person, make sure you don't do that. Don't use all caps, don't use all lowercase letters throughout your essay. Make sure you get it read multiple times. Do not personalize your personal statement for a specific dental school. I cannot emphasize this point more than I will throughout the presentation. This personal statement is going to be seen by all dental schools, so it should be very generic and generalized for why dentistry, not why that Xavier School of Dentistry. Where you talk about a specific school and where your essays are school specific, that is where your supplemental application or your secondary applications come in. So we're gonna have another video for that. So the prompt for the personal statement is gonna ask you, please explain why you want to pursue a career in dentistry. Once you submit the application, the personal statement cannot be edited. It's done. Game over. You can't make any edits. Here I have a diagram that basically asks what you want to say, what they are interested in. And the relevance is basically the middle ground. That's the target that you're trying to aim at with your personal statement, because you don't want to put the other person to sleep. You want to keep them interested. And that's where the hook or the introduction to your personal statement comes in handy, because it can either attract the reader or distract, and then they will basically just put your application to the side and move on to the next app. And that's the last thing that we want to do here. And then here we have think, write, edit, and polish. This is going to be a cyclic process. It's just going to keep going over and over again until you get that perfect personal statement. And sometimes once you submit it and then you look back at your application after a couple of months, you might find a typo, but by then it's kind of too late and you can't really do anything about it. So don't beat yourself up if that's the case. We're trying to avoid that from the get-go. So what makes a personal statement? So there is the big question, why dentistry? There is volunteering experience, there is work experience, extracurricular achievements, academic achievements, and then the main focus of this presentation is the why dentistry question. Because if you think about it, the volunteering, the work, the extracurricular, and the academics, all that was done in my previous video. I'm gonna have the link to it up here. But in this video specifically, we're gonna talk about the personal statement. You are the center of attention. Make sure you own it when you write your personal statement. So here I'm gonna have a schematic that basically visualizes what we're gonna talk about throughout the entire presentation. And I think this is gonna be very helpful for you guys. So first impressions, that makes or breaks the interaction. So meaning your introduction, your hook, that is your first impression, because the reader, the admission committee, they're reading that personal statement away from you. You're not there. So that is your first impression. Second thing is your creative writing process. How creative and how strategic can you be when you are drafting this personal statement? So there is an art to it. There is no one right way to do it, but there's a million wrong ways to do it. And that's what we're trying to achieve from this presentation, is to tell you what not to do and what you should do. So next is demonstrating reasoning abilities. So this personal statement should get your gears grinding, makes you think about what I have done like my entire life up to this point here on the keyboard trying to draft my personal statement. So next, make sure you check your work over and over again. So use a magnifying glass basically to kind of dissect your personal statement and make sure that everything flows and there's no mistakes. So don't try to be someone else. Don't be an impersonator. Don't be fake, because whatever you present yourself as when you write your personal statement, that should reflect what you present yourself as during the actual interview. And if both of them don't sync, then you either lied in the interview, which is not likely, or you either lied in your personal statement, which is the more likely option. If you are that person, then be that person in your personal statement and during the interview. So refinement. So your personal statement at the end of the day should be polished, should be shiny, should be representative of the person that you are and the person that you want admissions committee to see you as. So the big question is, why dentistry and why dental school in general? So again, I'm going to say that a million times. Don't write a personal statement that is school specific. Write it for all the dental schools in general. And talk about your long-term goals. What do you want to do? What is your target? What is my 5-year plan? What is my 10-year plan? What I want to do after dentistry? After I'm done with dental school, what do I want to do with that degree? Who do I want to help? Where is my community service going to be driven? Which community should I serve? And so forth. And last but not least is your creative writing. But at this point, you should have some sort of a final draft and you're just tweaking the last things in that draft. And at this point, I would highly advise you to reach out to someone that is a professional English writer, either creative writing or PhD or master's in English, and someone that is a dentist or a dental professional. Because dental terminology is very specific, and if you use the wrong terminology, it can throw the reader off. It can come off as you not knowing what you're talking about. And then finally is get ready to send out your personal statement, because at this point, it's perfect. Now, all of these should tie together to make you the person you are. You are the center of attention at this point. So that's why you should own it. You can have 100 people look at it, but at that point, is it even your personal statement anymore? It wouldn't be, because there's so many like pairs of eyes that looked at it and modified it, suggested you change this, change that. At that point, it's not even you anymore. So pick a number of, I'm gonna have that amount of people look over a personal statement, and that's it. By then, I should have a good one. And be content with that decision.
I would say make sure that you use very simple language, whatever you will actually say. If somebody were asking you in an interview why dentistry and that kind of stuff, because if you use a specific language that is not yours, when you go to the interview, that's not gonna show. Yep. And also keep in mind, this is going to be read by somebody that has to read a lot of applications. So keeping it simple and using very complex words is not going to make you stand out. It's just going to make the person having to reread and reread, and they might give up at that point. So keep that in mind. Keep it simple.
It's very rare for someone on admissions committee to read your personal statement twice. It's always that first impression, and you're trying to make that first impression be the only impression. So now the do's and the don'ts. So let's do the do's first. So again, like I said before, this is a general paper. So write it for all dental schools, not a specific dental school. You never know the reader's point of view. So again, general is better. Just why dentistry? Dentistry is a very holistic profession. Write from the heart. Like Fernanda said, if you think about it and it's what's in your heart, then elaborate more about that specific experience or instance. So have one central idea or story, because if you have your ideas very scattered and all over the place, you lost my attention and I'm going to move on to the next application. So highlight your strength and your growth. Show your self-awareness. So if you failed a class, or if you had this difficulty, or if you're a reapplicant, and the list goes on, be aware of your current situation and be okay talking about it, because it's good to bring it up in the personal statement than have to hopefully get an interview and then have to bring it up right on the spot at the interview. So it's good to kind of be upfront with everything that you have to talk about from the get-go, meaning your personal statement. Your interests and your goals. What do you want to do with that piece of paper, that degree that you're gonna eventually get? I want to do private practice, and I want to do this, I want to do that. One thing that I will tell you don't do is talk about specialty, because you are not even a dentist yet. So why are you going to be talking about specialty? So when I say talk about your goals down the line, keep it general dentistry related or community service related, or how you plan to use that degree to give back to your community. Revise some more. And that's the whole thing. It just, like I said at the beginning in that cyclic diagram, and just until you have the perfect personal statement, you're not done. Elaborate your 1 to 2 experiences. So by that, I mean in your experience section under the supporting information, talk about 1 or 2 or even 3 maximum experiences. Don't be talking about every single one of them, because at that point, you're just restating whatever you talked about in the 600 character text boxes.
Mm-hmm. If the personal experience that you're adding in the essay does not contribute to your overall idea of the personal statement or theme, then there's no need to put it in there. Only add parts of your personal experience that are gonna contribute to your overall essay. So as an example, I mentioned an organization that I volunteered with called Flying Samaritans, but I didn't just say I volunteered with Flying Samaritans for these reasons. I incorporated into my whole story. So it's incorporating your personal experiences, not to list them.
So be honest. When you're writing your personal statement, don't have a different agenda. The only agenda should be you trying to get into dental school. But at the end of the day, if you're gonna start lying at this point, then you're gonna go down that road of lying. Brag about yourself, but not too much. So in the previous schematic that I showed, how you're the center of attention, that's what I mean, brag about yourself. You have a lot to offer as an applicant. Don't hold back. It's basically this is your time to play all your cards. Your goal is to win this game that is called applying dental school, basically. If you brag about yourself in a way where you come off as in a cocky tone or very egotistical, then I think that would be a turn off. So there is a fine line where you should brag, but not too much. Tell a story about yourself. So the best story is the one that pulls on the emotional strings. Because if you tell me a story, and let's say I'm going to be that person that's going to be interviewing you, I'm going to remember reading the application, you talking about, let's say, your mom, or how like your cousin had a cleft lip or cleft palate, and how they had surgery, and how the surgeon was able to reconstruct their palate and basically make their appearance look seamless. So that's what I mean by a personal story. But at the end of the day, don't be talking about that cousin or that family member. Always bring it back to yourself. That's what I mean about bragging about yourself, you being the center of attention.
When we say limit the stories about others, try to have the story be no more than 2 sentences, so that you spend the majority of the time explaining how that impacted you and why it resonated with you.
Paint a picture of what are your characteristics and let that speak out what that is. Let's say, for example, if you're a leader, you can explain about this time that you organize a trip to a different country, and that's when you had a lot of people came in order to help that community. And so that way you are showing that you're a good leader, that you're a good communicator, that you are organized. So don't say I'm a good communicator, team leader, and organized. Let the story say what are your abilities. And that will be, to be honest, that will be less boring for whoever reads it. Keep in mind, there is a human being reading on the other side. You want to keep them, you want to keep their attention.
Yep. And like I said, in the second bullet point, you'll never know who specifically, what type of person is reading your personal statement. That's what I'm saying. Like, don't cater it to a specific person or a specific school. Keep it general. Now we're going to talk about the don'ts. So these are the things that you shouldn't do. Okay. So this is not a school-specific paper. Don't talk about a specific mission for a specific school. So let's say I'm going to use ATSU, okay? My school. Our mission statement is basically whole person healthcare.
UCLA is well-rounded. It's into like leadership, research, and service to your community. So they try to create like the leaders of the future kind of deal.
Of the future, okay. And then Western U?
They definitely are focused on interprofessional education because it's a health science school. So all the programs there are graduating health professions.
So that's how it is with ATSU. We're very big on interprofessionalism too. So this is a time where you talk about the interprofessionalism, the humanistic, the whole person healthcare. You talk about all that in your secondary supplemental application for that specific school. And then I'm going to have a video on that later. So don't talk about sensitive or controversial topics. So avoid those at all costs because, again, you don't know who's reading your personal statement and their point of view. Don't quote other people. Quotes are boring. And if you quote someone, then you are losing that amount of characters where you can be talking about yourself. Don't use positive or negative cliches. Fancy vocab, stay away from that because you are not trying to be creative where in a way that you show how much of a poet you are. Please don't right click on your Word document and hit synonym for that specific word to get a more fancier word because we all do that in undergrad for all the essays. And this is not the time to play with words. So don't plagiarize or lie because, again, be honest at the end of the day. Negative comments or excuses.
Sometimes there might be like excruciating circumstances, but this is not a place to have it. If you're going to talk about like a failure, you have to talk about how it helped you to grow. What do you learn? And also if you had like a bad grade or like a lower grade, how do you improve later on? Because that might happen in dental school. They want to see how resilient you are.
It's all about resilience. And then another thing also is right now, specifically with the COVID situation, I advise you to not talk about COVID and how it affected you because you are talking about, hopefully by the time it's over, only a couple of months out of your entire life. So that shouldn't be the central focus of your personal statement. I would say leave COVID out of your personal statement. And I believe in this cycle specifically, they have a section for COVID and where you can talk about that.
For instance, if COVID affected you negatively, do say how it affected you. For instance, you couldn't take the DAT in time and such, or something else at home happened. But at the end, say how it taught you to, roll with the punches because dentistry will be like that, dental school will be like that, and how you were able to adapt to this change quickly.
So don't restate your personal experience. So like I said in the do's, elaborate on them, but don't restate all of them. Don't have a service or someone else write your personal statement for you. Because again, whatever you write on there, however the personal statement shows, that should be very reflective of the person that is showing up on the interview day. And don't pay other people to write a personal statement or to revise it. There's a lot of friends that are willing to help you and want you to succeed. So reach out to as many people as you can. And if someone wants to charge you money, you're paying a lot of money for the application as it is. Don't pay extra for that service. So don't wait until the last minute to write your personal statement. Always have a work in progress draft of your personal statement. Don't submit it after your first draft. because what's the point? I don't care if you have a doctorate in English. I think anybody on earth can find a mistake in that doctor's personal statement, because that's how we are as human beings. We're just flawed. So don't submit a first draft. So don't just send it to anyone. Okay, send it to very specific people that are overqualified. Because if you send it to an underqualified person, I can literally just be in bed looking over your personal statement and tell you, oh, it's a good personal statement. Send it in. You're gonna get into school. How does that serve me? And these are the red flags. If you send it to someone and that's how they return it to you without any editing, just ignore whatever they said, because it's not gonna benefit you in any way. I want someone that dissects my personal statement, positively and negative criticism, because that is what I want. I want that person to catch anything that is good that I can elaborate on, or anything that is bad that I can remove before it's too late. So the do's and the don'ts.
So when you're brainstorming, make sure that you try to think of qualities that you have, and then like write them down. Like, you want them to know that you're a good leader. You want them to know that you're curious, that you have been involved in research, maybe that you're passionate about public health. Then from there, think of stories that show those qualities. But this is just the brainstorming. Remember, when you format it, you're supposed to pick those stories and try to organize it in a way that flows. So when I say these stories, make sure that yes, you include the story, show it, but at the very end, maybe one sentence or two maximum. You might want to restate whatever you want them to get, just in case they don't get it. But keep in mind, you don't want to be the entire paragraph of just descriptions of like, yes, I'm this, this, and that, and maybe like a little story. That's not gonna be helpful. Being you, yourself, your story is the only thing that is unique, because nobody had your experiences. Make sure you take advantage of that. Like I mentioned before, you don't want to tell, you want to show. You want to create a picture that helps to show who you are. And I know it's very hard, especially many of us are science majors, and they told us to not talk about ourselves or anything, just talk about the subject. This is not the time. This is creative writing. What that means is, if you're a good leader, don't say I'm a good leader. Don't say I'm good at public speaking. Don't say I'm the best amazing person that you should accept to dental school. You should show it. If you're a good leader, like in my case, I helped a lot in community health centers, and I was able to communicate with patients later on here in the United States, because I have experience volunteering both in Mexico and the United States, and I use that as my advantage. I will try to show how I was a leader in those circumstances. I will try to explain specifically stories of a patient. They were nervous, but then I started to talk in Spanish to them, and they completely relaxed. Because it is very important in the Hispanic populations to have somebody that speaks your same language, because the language barrier is very stressful. So that way I was able to show you that, not to tell you, oh yeah, I'm really good at communicating, I can translate to patients. They don't want that. Show it. When it comes to organization, you want to start first with why dentistry. Don't try to create a statement like they taught us in high school that you're supposed to have like a hypothesis, because if that happens, they're going to wonder, why do you keep going here and there and don't tell me what's going on? Remember, these people are reviewing thousands of applications. They don't have time for you to go into a loop. They want to know why dentistry, and then if they get interested, then show them, okay, why dentistry? Why do I fit in dentistry? You want to say why dentistry, why you're a good fit, and your vision. You don't want to stop there at why you're a good fit. The reason is, you can be very interested in dentistry, but don't really like it when you do it. They don't want you to drop out. You want to make sure that they know, hey, I'm going to stay here. I'm confirmed. So for that reason, you will have the story that sparked your interest, and then you will have the story that confirmed your interest. When you're thinking how you want to answer how you're a good fit to dentistry, try to list your qualities. You're a leader. Have you done research? Are you a curious person? Are you a good communicator? Have you maybe run your own business? Then, after writing those, think of stories that support that idea. That way you don't write stories and then you realize that story doesn't contribute to anything. So work retrospectively. Of course, you want to make sure you wonder, what if they don't get my main idea? That's the conclusion. In the conclusion, you're supposed to reiterate what you want to say, and then you're supposed to share your visions. Remember, your main strength is your story. Nobody had your experiences, and even if they did, they experienced it in a very different way. Don't be ashamed of your story. Share it. That's the way that you'll be unique. Some of the things that you might be wondering, what skills should I tell in my stories? I put them in the slide. So you want to show your passion for dentistry. You want to talk about research if it was meaningful for you. If it wasn't, don't include it. If you have strong leadership positions and if you have initiative, you want to also be ethical. So if you have stories that they let you put anesthesia in patients or extract teeth or anything like that, do not include it. That's unethical. And if you are doing that before dental school, most probably you will continue doing it. Don't do that. Be self-aware of your strengths and weaknesses. If you had anything that might indicate that you're not good for a school or as a dental student, you want to show, yes, this is my weakness, but this is how I became stronger because of that. In dental school, it's very hard. Some days you really wonder yourself, why am I doing this? And so they want to make sure that when you have those days, you are actually going to be fine because you already had those experiences before. So this is kind of their way of saying they're going to be fine. And last but not least, you want to have clear vision and career goals. What that means is if you're not completely sure what you want to do, it's okay. But if you have an idea, like maybe you want to have your own private practice, or you want to be teaching to dental students, something that you actually know that you might want to do, include it. That doesn't mean that you have to follow through. If you said you're going to be teaching, that means you have to do that at the end. That doesn't mean that. So now here's some common advice that I have heard from like admissions committee and from teachers that go through this process. Keep in mind, they review 100 applications. If you think about it, you will be overwhelmed. You're not going to look at it twice. You're not going to try to figure out what this person is saying. If it doesn't make sense, they're just going to move on. Whatever they got, they got. So go straight to the point. Also, do not repeat your CV. Think about it. If you were reading a CV and then you read something else and you're like, why are you telling me this again? Don't do that. The personal statement is an opportunity for you to elaborate whatever you couldn't show in there. An example of this is I did a lot of volunteering in community health centers, and what I elaborated is of stories of how I was able to improve the communication of patient-doctor, especially within the Latino community, because I'm from the Latino community. So I elaborated of something that I couldn't include in my application. So make sure that you do that. Always ask yourself, why do I want to write a sentence? If that sentence doesn't contribute for you to get into dental school or to show your abilities, then there's no reason to be there. Last but not least, do not tell the stories of other people. I know we have a lot of mentors and they really help us. And to some extent, maybe for many of you, including me, a mentor is what introduced you to the career. That's okay, but do not focus on them. If you want to maybe explain some of the characteristics of this mentor that inspire you to become a dentist, that's great, but do not focus only on that. If you're gonna say, for example, oh my God, I love how they communicated, then go ahead and go back to yourself. You could say, I did these activities to become a better communicator, so I become a better dentist. Always goes back to you.
So for example, I'm gonna talk about my personal statements later on. Part of my essay was about my mom. And for me, I only included a couple sentences just to introduce the topic of discussion was my mom, but I was the spotlight was on me the entire time. But if you need to talk about, let's say, a mentor, a dentist, your parents, or whomever, they kind of like give them one sentence. That's all they deserve in your personal statement is one sentence, two maximum. But the rest should be yours, and take ownership in that.
So here are 10 attributes of a dental applicant. For these, that doesn't mean your personal statement has to show all of this. They might show in other places like your CV and anything like that. So keep that in mind. But these are some things that you might think when you're doing this, when you're writing the personal statement, if you don't have it in other places of the application. One is the ethical compass, which I explained before. You want to be ethical, don't do anything that you shouldn't do if you don't have a license or certificate for that. Professionalism, because you're going to be dealing with people that are very smart, are the top notch of their fields. So you should be able to be somebody that is enjoyable. Manual dexterity. For this one is mostly explained in another portion, but if you have any unique story that you couldn't explain in the dexterity section, I would definitely include it in the personal statement. Reaction to criticism. Dental school is all about learning. There's going to be a lot of criticism. It will never come out right at the first time. So they want to make sure that you're going to be fine and you're not going to give them a tantrum or just say like, yeah, and don't learn it. That's the reason you need to show that you're fine with receiving criticism. Also, you want to show knowledge. So that mainly is to the point that you want them to show that you will be able to handle the classes. You will be taking a lot of classes, more than you will be able to take in undergrad, and that's okay. They will teach you how to do that, but they want to make sure that you have certain level. Critical thinking, because a lot of dentistry, not everything is like a piece manual. Some things you need to be able to work around it and wrap your mind around it and change it according to the patient. Not all patients are the same. Social skills. I mean, if you cannot communicate with your patient, you're in trouble. So that's the reason you need to show that you're fine communicating with patients. Self-awareness, which we explained before. If you fall, are you able to stand up again? Make sure that you show that. Maturity. You already had 4 years of undergraduate. Hopefully you're already mature enough in order to become a professional. A lot of people will see you as a leader. So make sure that you show that you're fine with that. And persistence. If this is not your first time that you apply, and this is the second time or the third time, show them that you really want to go to dental school and that you will keep going at it. That shows a lot of strength. So make sure that you show those.
So I'm going to elaborate on a couple of things. So I'm going to use the professionalism and the maturity, okay? And I'm going to talk about both of them. So dentistry as a whole, the dental profession, we are held to very high standards and we need to stay up there. So the community talks about like that dentist did this bad thing and how it's just all over the news. That brings the entire profession down for some time, and we have to overcome that. So for example, because this was a complete mess once it happened back in the day when HIV hit the US, and how dentists were refusing treatment for certain people of certain minorities, and that really was a very low point in the dental profession as a whole. And we took a lot of time for us to overcome that. And now the fact that we have COVID, hopefully we learned our lesson from what happened with HIV. So for example, I don't know if you guys saw this in one of the news videos or articles. They talked about how a dentist extracted a tooth while being on a hoverboard. I'm like, that's not professional and that's not mature. And that's kind of like what I'm trying to get at is maturity and professionalism go hand in hand. So make sure that you guys put in a lot of effort. If you're not at that point yet in maturity or professionalism, try put in effort to get there.
So they don't start with the name of the person, they start with the profession, dentist. And that kind of creates like a subliminal message.
Yep. Professionalism and maturity shows in writing, because you can be at a 5th grader or a 10th grader reading or writing level. Have other people look over it to kind of like amp it up and make sure that you're up there. Another thing is a subway artist, they should act professional or mature when they are on the clock. But whereas a dental professional, you are always, or you should always be acting professional, whether you're on the clock or not. So hopefully that makes sense. Another thing that I want to elaborate on is self-awareness and persistence. So for me, I'm a second-time applicant. So when I applied the second time, I made sure that I had a brand new personal statement, brand new disadvantage statement, because I didn't want to come off as that lazy person that just recycled and applied a couple months earlier than they applied the first time. I wanted to actually give the schools something new to look at. I wanted to elaborate and tell them, these were my mistakes the first cycle, this is how I overcame them, and here I am right now applying again. Nice to kind of meet you again. I still included certain elements, like I talked about my mom in the first personal statement, and I talk about my mom again in the second personal statement. So these kind of like core points or core story plots or whatever, I still had these, but the overall craft of the personal statement was a little bit different.
The first time around, I withdrew my application due to some reasons that I can definitely elaborate on in another video, or if you follow me on my Instagram page. And the reason for my first personal statement was good, but I still took the initiative to submit a whole new personal statement the second time around, even though I did know that my first application was not really reviewed. The second time when my application was reviewed, when I met with an admissions representative from Western University, he mentioned that he had read my first application that cycle, and then he saw like what I had changed. He told me what I should improve on for my second time personal statement. So my point is that first application was not reviewed, but they may review it when they're reading your application for your second cycle. They'll read your first one as well, because it is still by them in their portal, wherever. So it doesn't just get deleted just because you withdrew your application. This should be a guideline for when you're writing your personal statement. Try to keep these 3 words in mind. Sparked. So there should be a story in your introduction or your first initial paragraphs using that word. And then this will force you to say what sparked your interest in dentistry. And then in the middle part of the essay, there should be a reason for how you confirmed it. So use the word confirmed, and towards the end, you should use the word solidified, because this shows, progress. At first, it wasn't just like, I really like dentistry and I'm gonna go for it. No, first it sparked it. What confirmed your interest in dentistry? And then still, did you confirm it enough to go and invest and apply to dental school and become a dentist, or you just like the idea of it? So this is why I say keep these 3 words in mind, because they'll force you to sort of stay on track when you're writing your essay.
Keywords that you should include in your application or in your interview. But a couple keywords should be kind of like dental related. So for example, Naveen said solidify. For me, since I was a dental assistant and I want to show like how much experience I had as a dental assistant, I'm like, this and this cemented the idea, or it implanted the idea of dentistry in my head. So that's what I mean. Be creative in a way. Okay, this guy or this girl is trying to kind of be funny or punny, that's what creative writing is all about. I use a very common word used by the common man, and I switch it with a dental related word. So that way they know this person had sufficient amount of exposure to the dental profession, where they're very bold with whatever they're making. For example, like this experience with my mom was a primer of why I got into dentistry. Primer meaning kind of like, or the initiator or whatever, and so forth. So you can, if you're competent with your knowledge of just the dental terminology, then I would say experiment with it, but have it proofread by people, of course.
Yes, definitely. And this step shouldn't be done when you're drafting your personal statement. First, just, let your ideas and thoughts run through and write down everything you'd like, and then play with the wording so that you're not stalling because you can't find the right word. So for your paragraphs, I would say something that really helped me was always stating where it's going to lead. If you can't come up with that right away, that's okay. Continue writing your paragraph and then go back to it and say, okay, well, this paragraph was all about Flying Samaritans for me, let's say. Then I will go ahead and rewrite my introduction sentence. So don't try to always predict where your paragraph might go, because once you start writing, you might get new ideas, and then you can go back and rewrite the first sentence. And then after you so first sentence we have about what it's going to be about, and then third, second sentence, whatever it is, have a story to use as your evidence, and that story should be from your experiences. So not from Google or a research paper, your experiences are your evidence. And then follow it up with what you want to bring out about the experience? What do you want them to pick up from that story you just shared? So that means, let's say you held a clinic or you were able to coordinate with a team a certain event. So then add a sentence about what you learned about doing that. Don't just assume they're going to connect the dots and they're going to know what to pick up from that story that you just said. And then your last sentence should be about how this whole thing, how that whole paragraph tied to your overall theme in the essay. Did it confirm dentistry? Did it lead you to go and start volunteering, start working in a new field? So always go back to, why are you telling us this paragraph, basically? And if you find that, oh my God, the story is so good, I really want to include it, but it's not tying in and there isn't really a huge purpose in putting it in, then at the end of each sentence, you should always ask yourself, did this show something about me? And then more importantly, what did it show about why you want to become a dentist? Because I could share something about cooking or baking, and that's something you're going to learn about me, but how does that relate to why you wanted to be a dentist? So always ask yourself, is this concluding something, to your purpose of writing this essay? Again, like I said, your first topic sentence, you don't have to write it right away. So your hook does not have to be the first thing you write. Just write it out, and then you can go back and write your hook. Because for me, that was easier. I always stalled and I procrastinated because I wanted a really good hook. And after a while, it turned out that my second sentence actually of my introduction was better than my hook. So then we just would take out the whole hook and we kept the second sentence as my hook because it was much better. So that's why go back and rewrite your hook after you write your essay. So another thing is, try to be as concise as you can be. As you can tell, I talk a lot, so I had a huge problem with this. I wanted to say everything, and I thought every little thing mattered because I want them to know this about me, but there's no time for that. You don't even have the characters for it, so you need to be as concise as you can. I have a tendency to be using words that may be flowery and such, and there was no space, I should say, for that. So many words, I had to take them out because I needed to just get my points across. So avoid fluff. And then, like I said, don't assume they can connect the dots for you. They're reading the essay quickly. So they need to quickly learn about you and your purpose for why you want to pursue dentistry. And you're going to tell them that. They can pick up something else from your story that you may have no idea about, and then you will be misunderstood. And you're not there for them to clarify with you. So be very clear on what you want them to pick up from the story.
And that's why we say to make sure multiple pairs of eyes look at it, because if you show it to me, I might, look at it, I'm like, okay, this is a solid personal statement. Like, I wish mine was that strong, and so forth. And then if Fernanda looked at it, she will say, like, okay, I think your intention might be misunderstood in that sentence. I would reword it differently. And correct. Naveen should be accepting of that criticism, because at the end of the day, that person that's helping you is hopefully wanting you to get into dental school. And that's the entire goal. When you say concise and don't fluff and don't just kind of like have side conversations, think of the personal statement as a 4,500 character speech that is called the elevator speech. Okay, you're going from floor 1 until, let's say, the 10th story, and you have that 20 seconds or whatever to pitch your why that person should hire you, or why that dental school should hire you. And that's the idea. Just get to the point. This is how bad I want to get in dental school, and please let me in. Some people that will read your personal statement, they will pick up if you sound desperate or not. So schools don't like desperate students, because these are the people that are needy. These are the people that are going to be knocking on the admissions door every 5 minutes. An issue happens.
Well, that actually leads to my next point about who you should have review your essay. So for me, I would send it to English professors, let's say, or people who I knew were strong in grammar, just, organization, flow, wording, and such. But those people would not know a lot about the dental terminology because they weren't in the dental field. So then I didn't depend on them to correct my content, and if it made sense to someone who is familiar with the dental careers or field. So instead, I was also giving it to people who were, or whether it was dental students, dentists, advisors who were also familiar with the dental field, so that way they can critique my terminology. So for instance, if I used crowns when I meant veneers, that may not make sense, and whoever's reading it will think, wait, so don't you have a lot of experience in dentistry? Why is it that you're using the wrong terminology? So that's another thing, is that you don't want to show that you don't know a lot about it, yet your experiences say otherwise. So everything should flow together.
The reason why Naveen recommends you have it read by English-focused writers and dental professionals, most of the time the admissions committee has people that are dentists, has people that are hygienists, and people that are just very good at administrative services. I know people at my school that are not dentists and have very limited knowledge with like the dental terminology. So if that person ends up reading yours and then you end up talking about like what type of composite material your dentist used or did the root canal with this such material and that, then that might throw that person off. So that's what I'm saying, like, be general with your personal statement. Speak to the general population.
So out of my tooth tips, I would say this is one of the things that you should always keep in mind when you're writing your essay. If there's something that's showing, for instance, a hint that it could be a great fit for a different career, say why you still would like to use it to become a dentist, right? So your essay should fit the career of dentistry. So if I say I love helping people, a teacher helps people, a social worker helps people, what is it about dentistry that's making you want to go into it? So your personal statement should not be just about your purpose in life and your goals. It should fit well with the career of dentistry. State your purpose in dentistry, and that's basically saying what you want to do once you do get your degree. So why should they give you a chair to get the dental degree and the knowledge when they could give it to someone else who could make a huge advancement in dentistry or in the world? You don't know if it's going to be local or international, but we do want to stay local because you'll be going to a dental school in the US. So how will you be able to improve it? So your conclusion should not only state your purpose and why you want to pursue dentistry, but at the same time, what you're going to bring to it. So what are you going to do to, like for instance, I mentioned health disparities because of the experiences that I witnessed. So one thing I would like to do is to increase preventative education so that there's more people who feel empowered by knowledge and they can take steps at home to be able to improve their oral health. So that's one way that you could put in your conclusion of how you'll take your dental education and make good use out of it.
Your personal statement should be a beautiful puzzle piece. Everything should fit together cohesively. And with that being said, if there's any rough edges, and that's what I showed the schematic at the beginning with the diamond and the pencils and the magnifying glass and all that, is to kind of like visually illustrate the process or the craft that is writing your personal statement. At the end of the day, you are presenting yourself in the best light, and that shouldn't be an easy process, because if it was easy, everybody would do it and everybody would get into dental school, but that's not the case. So I think some of you guys watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but this is a clip from it, and let's watch it.
They're on to me, dude. Those guys are sharp as nails up there. You can't put anything past them. Oh my God, dude, I'm freaking out. I am so stressed out. I feel like I'm having a panic attack.
You want to talk about stress? You want to talk about stress? Okay? I've stumbled onto a major company conspiracy, Mac. How about that for stress?
What the hell are you talking about?
This company is being bled like a stuck pig, Mac, and I got a paper trail to prove it. Check this out. Take a look at this.
That is the application
Right,
process.
that right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay? Pepe Sylvia. This name keeps coming up over and over again. Every day, Pepe's mail's getting sent back to me. Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. I look in the mail. Well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia. So I say to myself, I gotta find this guy. I gotta go up to his office. I gotta put his mail in the guy's goddamn hands. Otherwise, he's never gonna get it. He's gonna keep coming back down here. So I go up to Pepe's office, and what do I find out, Mac? What do I find out? There is no Pepe Sylvia. The man does not exist, okay? So I decided, oh, shit, buddy, I gotta dig a little deeper. There's no Pepe Sylvia. You gotta be kidding me. I got boxes full of Pepe. All right, so I start marching my way down to Carol in HR, and I knock on her door, and I say, Carol, I gotta talk to you about Pepe. And when I open the door, what do I find? There's not a single goddamn desk in that office. There is no Carol in HR. Mac, half the employees in this building have been made up. This office is a goddamn ghost town.
Okay, Charlie, I'm gonna have to stop you right there. Not only do all of these people exist, but they have been asking for their mail on a daily basis. It's all they're talking about up there. Jesus Christ, dude. We are gonna lose our jobs.
Well, calm down, because here's one thing that's not gonna happen.
What?
We're not gonna get fired.
We're not.
Because we've already been fired.
We've lost our jobs?
Yeah. About 3 days ago, a couple pink slips came in the mail. One for you, one for me. So what did I do? I mailed them halfway to Siberia, okay?
If we've lost our jobs, that means we lost our health insurance, which means all of this was for nothing. God damn it, dude. I'm having a panic attack. I'm actually having a panic
Will you
attack.
settle down and have another cup of coffee?
I am, bro.
All right, well, fine. You know what, Barney? Give this guy a cigarette. He's freaking out.
Huh? Who?
Barney. He's the guy who tipped me off to Pepe Sylvia.
Barney? Who the hell is Barney?
You don't see Oh, shit. What the hell did he...
You've lost your mind. You've lost your goddamn mind, Charlie.
So, moral of the story, don't be Pepe Sylvia because they don't know who the hell that person is. Just if you're Pepe Sylvia, make sure that they know that in your personal statement. You are trying to present yourself. Don't assume that dental school is going to have red screen and have all the papers of your dental application on the wall and try to connect the dots for you. That's what I'm trying to get at with this video is they don't have the time for that. It's not possible. It's not feasible because they have millions of applications to look at. So make sure yours just is upfront to the point and hooks them on.
It was like kind of like me trying to figure out what exactly they wanted to look into me so they accept me. But the thing is, this is a two-way process. You also want to figure out what the schools are, so you go to the school that you actually want to go and that you do enjoy it.
So for me, I definitely was like that when I started out because I wanted to write everything in my personal statement. I thought everything was important, right? Because I want to highlight all the things I've done. But at the same time, if you write everything, then it's there isn't that clear vision, and then they're going to be confused. And then if you're leaving them confused, they're going to start thinking like they don't even know themselves. Why would we, take that risk on them? So that's why it's more important that you use less examples and stories to draw on your points than trying to put everything in just to make sure everything is in.
To be continued in the next video.
There's so much strength in you and me.